States and its property over the last decade.
The World Trade Center's Twin Towers, two of the world's tallest and most dramatic buildings, used to dominate the lower Manhattan skyline. In 1993, they were the target of a bomb, hidden in a vehicle parked in an underground car park. For the first time, the American public experienced a major terrorist attack on its own doorstep. Despite a relatively low death toll, 6 people were killed in the explosion, the governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, had no doubt the event had wider implications for security in the U.S.
The one thing about this that is most notable, as far as I can tell, is that never in my lifetime, and never in the history of the last 60, 70 years, has this ever happened in the United States of America. No foreign people or force has ever done this to us. Until now, we were invulnerable. And it is therefore a unique moment in our history.
2 men, a Jordanian and a Pakistani citizen, were later convicted in connection with the bombing. But the next time a major attack took place in the United States, those responsible were from closer to home.
They're calling for help. A lot of people have fallen from the top of the stories down through. There's a pit down in the middle of the building, and they're down in there. We pulled out 3 live ones about three hours ago. We just pulled out a baby about 45.
168 people were killed and many more were injured when a bomb hidden in a truck went off outside the federal building in Oklahoma City in 1995. At first, public suspicion fell largely on Muslims within the United States. But eventually, 2 American right-wing extremists, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, were arrested and convicted in connection with the attack. Later, the US Vice President Al Gore paid tribute to the people of Oklahoma City.
America cannot forget and will not forget Oklahoma City. America will not forget the victims, the courage of the rescuers, the service to our nation of the federal workers who died, or the promise of the children who left our world too soon.
United States property abroad has also been the target of major terrorist attacks. In August 1998, American embassies in Nairobi in Kenya and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania were badly damaged by bombs. In the Nairobi attack, around 250 were killed, along with 10 more in Dar es Salaam. The victims included local people as well as Americans.
She was kind, joy, and she was very caring. She was a beautiful and a loving wife, caring for me and my kids. So there's no way I would say I'll forget her, because her picture will be always in me.
United States intelligence later blamed the Saudi dissident Osama bin Laden for the bombings, and Bill Clinton ordered reprisal attacks against what he described as terrorist bases in Afghanistan and Sudan. But last year there was another attack. The USS Cole, an American warship harbored in Yemen, was targeted by suicide bombers. 17 sailors were killed. But although the attack was again overseas, the loss of life underlined that over the last decade, the United States has increasingly become one of the world's main targets for terrorist attacks.
Nicholas Walton on a history of attacks. But today, everyone agrees, is a day like no other. I'm Lise Doucette. You're listening to a BBC World Service News special. On a day when in the United States, huge rescue operations are continuing after a series of coordinated attacks in the cities of New York and Washington caused devastation and a huge loss of life. 2 airliners in the early hours of the day deliberately crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York. Both buildings collapsed, sending up huge plumes of black smoke into the sky. A 3rd plane crashed into the Pentagon Defense Headquarters in Washington. The building is still blazing. A 4th aircraft crashed in the city of Pittsburgh. President George W. Bush has called it a test of the nation's resolve. He said those responsible would be hunted down and punished. It is a day indeed of devastation which has concentrated minds in the defense establishment. What could they possibly be thinking? So Dr. Paul Cornish of the Centre for Defence Studies joins us here in our BBC World Service special. Dr. Cornish, do you think this will actually demand a rethinking of America's vulnerabilities?
I think there's going to be a great deal of debate about just that subject, but it seems to me it's going to be completely impossible to do anything along those sort of lines. You're talking about the greatest open society in the world that we've ever seen, and it seems to me inconceivable that you could kind of turn it into some sort of police state overnight to deal with this sort of, as it were, infiltration and penetration. And it is an open society, and that's what it's supposed to be and will always be. But
in order to be an open society, it's meant to have a very good intelligence gathering network. This has obviously exposed huge gaps in it.
Yeah, indeed. I think we've heard all day about the facility with which whoever the people were who carried out these attacks managed to get onto the internal flights and with their weapons and whatever else. Yeah, certainly, there is a huge, staggering slip-up in intelligence here.
And yet it comes at a time where Washington is constantly talking about threats to the city of the United States, of course, focusing on the keystone of the policy, which is a new national missile defense shield. If this kind of attack takes place when they were supposed to be concentrating on it, will heads have to roll? Will certain people have to face some very hard questions?
I should imagine so, but that's going to be a long way down the line. I think your correspondent, Jonathan Marcus, who I was listening to earlier on, was absolutely right when he was talking about the ease with which we've been talking for many years about how easy it might be to get a suitcase bomb and whatever else into the United States, and here, in a way, is the example precisely of that. I wouldn't by any means suggest that it was easy to get onto an aeroplane and hijack it. But it doesn't seem to have been all that difficult.
Dr. Cornish, stay with us. We want to ask just how easy it was. Christopher Lockwood is a freelance air journalist and aviation expert. Chris Lockwood, just how difficult is it to have 4 airliners crashing at all about the same time, including apparently a few of them hijacked?
Totally impossible. It's never happened before. This is one of the amazing, stunning things about today's events.
So is it luck or planning?
Was it luck or planning? A combination of both. I mean, I think for any organisation to hijack 4 aircraft, 5 aircraft, and get them to the targets with all suicide pilots on board at the same time is the most amazing piece of... it's almost comic book stuff.